G'day Darkrealmers, it's horror author and illustrator Michael J. Elliott here with you again. And today I'm going to be reviewing a movie that blurs the lines between reality and delusion. A movie called Camera Obscura. Okay, hey, if this is your first time to the Diaries, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to keep up with all the best movie reviews, book reviews, creepypasta stories and trivia from the world of horror, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, okay? All right, Darkrealmers, well, this is one of the best creepy films I've seen in a long time. So I've got for you not only the trailer today, but I've also got a special featurette, the making of this movie. So let's get started. Yeah. Now, Camera Obscura is a 2017 movie that was directed and co-written by Aaron B. Koontz. And no, sorry guys, I don't have any idea whether he's related to Dean, okay? But it stars Christopher Denham as Jack Zellar, Nadja Bobyleva, I hope I've pronounced that right, as Claire, Noah Segan as Eould, and Catherine Curtin as Detective Dawson. Now, we pick up the story with Jack, and he's in the office of his psychiatrist because he's a photojournalist who has been overseas in Afghanistan and other trouble spots, and he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And since that time, he hasn't picked up a camera. He's got no interest in it. He's just lost his way in terms of photography. And he's basically been supported by his girlfriend, Claire, or his fiancée. And she's been very supportive, but she decides it's been 18 months. It's time. He needs to get back into it. And so she goes to an auction and she picks him up a vintage camera. And he's, of course, very grateful for it, but he's not going to use it. And she says, no, you will, because she works in real estate. And she's gotten him a job photographing properties for the company. And they're all different. They're apartments, they're industrial land, and so forth. And he starts taking his first few pictures and he finds he's slowly getting back into it. He's finding he's enjoying the enjoyment of photography again. Now, he takes his films to the place where he's been going for years to get them developed. And at the camera development place, there's a fire, and they only managed to save some rolls of his film. Well, the creepy part is when he looks through the photos, he finds that there's images there that definitely weren't what he, captured with his camera. For example, in a playground, he sees a dead young boy. Okay, and that definitely wasn't there. Now, this is where the creepy part comes in, Darkrealmers, because the director is very cleverly, okay, this man has post-traumatic stress disorder. He's a victim of flashbacks and delusions and so forth. Is this happening? Is it not? Okay, well, before I go on, I'll give you a taste of what you can expect, because here's the trailer to look forward to, Darkrealm.
If you knew someone was going to die, would you try and save them?
Did you have another nightmare?
I think I'm still sleeping. What the hell? There was something in the photos that I can't explain.
Jack, that's crazy.
I just don't know what the truth is anymore. We have to go.
Why? What? Jack, everything's fine.
This camera is demonic.
Jack, this is really weird.
You don't need to go digging this stuff up.
Who are you? This is not my Jack.
I don't know how this is gonna end. Whatever I did it for us.
So, is the camera demonic, or is Jack having a major breakdown? Well, that's the interesting thing about this movie, Darkrealmers. As Aaron Bean Coots says, he leaves it up to you to sort of work out what's reality and what's not. Now, Jack takes his camera to a camera expert and says, look, I notice that parts of my camera have been custom made, you know, from the original. Would you be able to tell me what it is? And he says, yes, this is basically an old World War II German camera. And he says, you'll notice that the film rolls or winds on from right to left rather than from left to right. And he said, yes, I figured that out. And he examines the camera and he says, well, you know, you've probably, you know, figured out that you can't get an exposure with this camera. It's impossible to take photos. So you're thinking, okay, but we've seen the photos. What's going on? Now, the creepy thing in the photos is that Jack tries to change what is happening in these photos. And the first incident is where he saves a woman from a burning building. And yes, he does save the woman in the photo's life. But then he realises when he looks at the newspaper that an elderly woman, the woman who he saved, her mother, died in the fire. And that's when it hits him that if you save a life has to be taken. Yin and yang, all balance, okay? And the next one is really creepy, where he is convinced his girlfriend is going to die at their anniversary dinner. And he does everything to change the outcome. Well, things get progressively worse for Jack because he finds it harder and harder to save someone and then replace the life that he's just saved. And his actions become more violent, more out of control. And the interesting thing is the director and the writer have thrown into this mix the thought or the notion that this camera may have been owned by a serial killer. Now, we have Jack discovering this serial killer's lair, and that threw me out of it a little bit, out of the loop, because it was a little bit like there was too much going on. We didn't really need that, okay? Now, it was great that perhaps it was forming part of Jack's, delusions and psychoses, but it tended to give you too much to work with because it was, three aspects: a demonic camera, a serial killer, perhaps soul in the camera or whatever, or Jack's state of mind. So it was very much one of those ones where you had to sort of try and piece together bits and think of little scenes that have come before that may make it a little bit easier to glue together. Now, I don't want to give you the impression, Darkrealmers, that it was hard to follow in any way. No, it's not. It's very straightforward. And it's basically taking us from Jack discovering these pictures and then trying to, save the person in them, to his actions becoming more and more violent and more out of control. Now, it's a great little horror fest. It certainly makes you think, Darkrealmers, because we're there and we know this man has gone through some hell in Afghanistan, and we see a flashback of that. And that's when we start thinking, okay, perhaps this is, all meshing together. His memories and what he's seeing is all being jumbled up, okay? And it's a great sort of not so much who done it, but why done it, if you get my meaning. And I can recommend it if you want something where you've got to keep your eyes on the movie, okay? It's not one where you can sit there, ladies, and do your nails and then look up, because you may miss something very, very important, okay? And don't check your emails or anything like that, because it does demand your concentration. But it is worth the investment you put in. Okay, Dark Realmers. Well, to give you a little bit more about what the director and the co-writer was trying to achieve and what the cast members felt about the film, I've got a really great little bonus feature for you. It's about the making of Camera Obscura. So we'll have a look at that, and I'll come back and wrap things up for you, Dark Realm.
I was in an elevator, and this guy had gone on a trip to like Ecuador or something. He was in the elevator and he said something about how they couldn't take pictures of the locals because they were afraid that a camera would take away your soul when they took a picture. And I was like, oh, you know, I've heard that before. It's like a trope that's existed in a few other films and stuff. And I thought maybe there's a fun way to play that. Oh, it's weird, it's trippy, it's violent. Like, let's do this.
This was a guy that had a lot of psychological scarring before the film even starts. It's just trying to basically get his life back together. You know, he's trying to have some sense of stability. He's trying to maybe start a family, and he's moved back to his hometown. Then the camera comes into his life and starts to derail his plans.
We meet Claire when she already lived with Jack and his situation for over a year. She has given so much that she cannot give anymore, and she wants him to get better.
I play the main guy, Jack's best friend. As his buddy, I'm trying to be there for him and take care of him.
What I love about Jack is he's really struggling and coping with his PTSD in a way where I think we really acknowledge that this guy's been through a lot of traumatic, moments abroad. You know, I think a photojournalist, though, completely has the uncensored palette, so to speak. So they get everything. The things that we don't see back here, they're seeing it all.
Aaron and I both wanted to handle the PTSD as realistic as possible and try to make the first 30 minutes of the movie kind of grounded so that the audience is not sure if this is maybe the ultimate unreliable narrator, so to speak.
Why Jack has to go down this path is quite simply he believes it's going to keep his fiancée alive. Now, whether or not that's in Jack's head or whether or not there's, this malevolent force within a camera that's pulling strings, again, is kind of left for the viewer to figure out. What I wanted to do was take an ordinary person and put him in extraordinary circumstances to fight for love. It's an allegory to love.
Ready, and action! Cut. Beautiful.
He's there and he comes back and that's it. Guys, that was fantastic.
All right, moving on.
I do love to play detectives. I think I would have done law enforcement if I hadn't done acting. It's always fascinating to me how they followed their hunches. I think she's really on a passionate mission to make sure no one else gets killed. She's quite aware of what's going on, and yet she doesn't have the legal power to stop it.
The first time I read the script, it was really thrilling. I liked the characters right away. And then I talked to Aaron and he said, well, they're gonna be burning bathtubs and stuff. And I was like, okay. It's my first horror film and I've never done one so far and it's amazing, I love it.
Horror movies are exciting, man. I mean, especially when you get to be a grown-up, that you don't have these huge moments where things are really scary or exciting all the time.
My favorite part about working on the film thus far is just Aaron's enthusiasm. It's so great working with a first-time writer and director because he has such a really clear vision of this sort of nightmare that's unfolding.
I really hope the viewers, when they're done, feel a little uneasy. I want it to feel like a punch in the gut, and you're like, okay, wait a second. Like that was sad. I saw where we got to. It got really dark, but there's something more to this, and there's a thread here that I don't know that I'm following, and I want them to kind of maybe start to try and unearth some questions, to give them maybe some answers that they weren't aware might actually exist in the film.
Well, Dark Realmers, that may have whetted your appetite to see this film. Now, as I said, I enjoyed it. Now, the criticism I have are minor, and more technical than anything else. Now, there's a whole episode in the movie where Jack goes to a hardware store and starts buying stuff that, you know, you'd see Dexter basically get, you know, ropes, bleach, you know, stuff. Okay. And the hardware store owner may or may not be gay, but may or may not be attracted to Jack. Okay. And Jack says at the checkout, have you got any of that stuff, you know, that knocks people out? And the hardware guy says, whoa, you know, what are you? I need to know what's in this. Well, that's when Jack attacks him. Now, the fight scene between these two goes on. And just when you think one's knocked out and, oh, it's all over, no, up they pop and it starts all over again. And that scene could have been really tightly edited a lot more, Darkrealmers. And it went on, as far as I was concerned, way too long. You know what? I was watching that scene, and do you know what popped into my head? The fight scenes between Peter Griffin from Family Guy and the giant chicken. Yeah, it sort of pulled me out a little bit. So, I mean, I get really cheesed off with movies where, and I've mentioned this before, Darkrealmers, where, you know, people get knocked out, or they have some sort of like bashed in the head, but they're up again 2 minutes later and grabbing for the victim, or the victim's trying to grab them. So this needed to be a little bit tighter, but that was just a minor thing that I felt could have been improved. Okay, overall, it's a good creepy movie. Now, if you're over slasher films, possession films, things that go bump in the night, this is something a little bit different. So I think you'll enjoy this. Yeah, I don't think it's for like my Darkrealmer Amber, because of the murder scenes and the copious amounts of corn syrup. But for everyone else, I think you'll enjoy this. And I'm not going to say that, yes, everything gets resolved and everything like that, because as you saw in the featurette, the director and co-writer says, well, you make up your mind, you know. It's one of those not that I'm trying to suggest it doesn't give you an ending, it does. But we have to decide, out of all those scenarios, what has happened, what has triggered the final scene. Okay, so there you go, Darkrealmers. That's my review of Camera Obscura. Now, you can see this movie here on YouTube, and it's also available on DVD. So check that out for yourselves, okay? And let me know what you think in the comments below, okay? If it's one of the movies you've seen, what did you think of the ending, okay? Were you satisfied with it, or did you find that the director perhaps let you down a little bit, okay? Don't forget to hit that comment button and leave a comment for me. And also too, don't forget, please give us a thumbs up. Really do appreciate that, Darkrealmers. So that's it for my review for this movie. I'll be back again very, very soon with another review for you. So until then, Darkrealmers, after watching this trailer and featurette, I strongly advise that you stay in the light. Bye for now.